Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the EGU podcast, bringing you experts weekly in mindset, energy, business, and all things spiritual. We are a collaborative hub of awakening and emerging entrepreneurs, and we encourage you to thrive. You're with Michelle Reinhardt, creator of Entrepreneurs Globally Unite. And today we're here to find out all about the art of connecting with your audience. And I have waiting in the wings a very, very special guest, Andrew Eggleton. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome, Andrew. So we're going to be discussing the presenter's brain today, guys and girls. We're going to talk about the heart and aligning intuition as well. So what I'd like to do is encourage you to turn off your zings and pings for the next 35 to 40 minutes and sink in to learn a new way of attaching and attracting and presenting to your audience for maximum impact. So let me tell you about Andrew. He is a modern day system disruptor, an author, TV presenter, actor, speaker, and multi-award winning producer. With over 23 years in the entertainment industry, working with names such as Ryan Gosling and Michael J. Fox, as well as Peter Jackson, he gets immense joy from nurturing business people, artists, and entrepreneurs to reach their fullest potential when speaking live or to the camera. His mission is to deliver world-class coaching, dropping clients from their head to their heart, instilling confidence in their story, and then layering them with tools so that anyone can perform at levels they never thought possible. His intuitive coaching approach has been utilised all over the world with incredible success. Andrew tours Australasia and Asia consistently and treats each individual as a unique piece of art, crafting his approach accordingly to suit their needs. That's impressive, Andrew.
I like that last piece. I know I wrote it and I shouldn't be saying that, but I love that. I love that last piece about treating each person as the unique piece of art that they are.
Do you know, I really resonated to that as well. With my work, Andrew, I instill in my clients and customers that each of them is as unique as their individual fingerprint. And each one of them has that mark, I call it a heart print, that they need to bring out to the world. So I'm very, very excited to hear how you do that. And let's get started, shall we?
Sure. So you want to know how I do that, how I treat each person as an individual piece of art?
Let's start there, and then I'd love to delve further into that, and because it's so important to help them drop from their heads into their hearts, because that's where the magic is.
Yeah, that's probably the line that sums it up. I drop people when I don't drop them on their heads. I drop them out of their heads into their hearts. And what that means is that after 24 years, I'm a technically sound presenter. And I'm going to take you back a few years, quite a few. And when I was presenting, there was always an empty feeling inside that I wasn't quite satisfied with what I was doing. Technically, I was very good. I smiled, I hit my marks, I remembered my lines, and I delivered an upbeat piece to camera. But for me, there was always a part that your audience is always going to judge you. If they're going to judge me, I'd like them to have the whole story.
Yeah, fair point.
To have the whole story, it would be very hard. I could then accept how they were looking at me because I wasn't bringing some two-dimensional character to the camera. I was bringing my whole self. And it's only in the last 2 months that I was flying back from Perth doing a workshop back to teach in Bali. And I was in the middle of one of life's big decisions, the chicken or the fish on the plane. And I just had this clear, there was just such clarity for me that what I actually had to do was get people from their heads, which was the technical, into their hearts, which was the source. And when they come from the source, they didn't have to wear the mask. They didn't have to indicate what it is they were trying to show the audience. Now, the word indicating for me means that when you're physically showing the audience the emotion that you're wanting to have or having to feel. For example, a young man over in Bali when I was teaching just a little while ago, and he was a photographer, very technically minded. He had the mechanic brain. And he got up on stage in front of camera, and he kept it. There was just something that was frustrating me. And I was like, what are you doing? What's happening for you up there? And he's going, I'm just trying to come across really trustworthy. And the funny thing is that this guy, out of everybody in the group, was the most trustworthy person in the room. If he found $2 on the ground and on the street, he would go out and try to find the person who owned it. That's the kind of person. So when I say indicating, is that he just needed to be himself in front of the camera, no change. He didn't have to show that he was trustworthy, because once he put that trustworthy mask on, the only person that has to put on a trustworthy mask is the person who's not trustworthy.
Correct.
So if someone, when he was doing that, he was actually acting, indicating, hey, I'm trustworthy. Where he didn't need to do that. It's someone, again, who will go, I'm really passionate about helping people. And when they're presenting, they're pretending to be passionate. But if you're already passionate, like I am always passionate about presenting, it just comes across in my voice.
Yeah.
I sit in it. The other example is a beautiful young man named, he's a yoga instructor, a great yoga instructor over in Perth. And when he hopped in front of the camera, he was indicating that he was a yoga instructor. I mean, he was acting the yoga instructor. But he was such a rock star yoga instructor, he just needed to be himself. Bring him to the camera, and you are already the yoga instructor. You don't need to show us what he did is calm himself down and pretended like this is what I believe everyone thinks a yoga instructor should talk like or sound like. And I was like, you don't need to do that, because I'm buying into you. You're what separates everybody else.
So effectively removing the masks, really, to present and unlearning all of the stuff that we're supposed to be doing, and just, as you say, just bringing your heart to the camera, bringing your heart to the table.
Yeah. So presenting is effectively it's a doing, but even more than that, presenting to me is a feeling. It's not technical; it's a feeling. And so if you remove the masks, it's like whenever I present, I stand in the room and I allow myself to feel into the room for a while. I allow that quietness. It can be awkward for people in the audience, but not for me. And for the first minute, it is about me. And then after that, it's all about the audience. So I feel it, and I allow that flow of energy. I get that flowing. And I call out if I can, you know what it's like. You can tell if someone's anxious, right?
Yes.
Because you're like, I'm feeling anxious, and I've been doing this 24 years. I don't get anxious before.
It's not mine. Who's got it? Who's wearing it?
That's it. So I call it out. I'm like, someone's anxious in here. Maybe one, maybe two people. I want you to let everything go. And now we're going to start. And then you feel that flow of energy. And if I take that mask off, which is effectively a block, it's like when you go in to give someone a beautiful hug and then they get really awkward and kind of push you off, and it blocks that transfer of energy, that flow. It's the same thing in a room full of people.
Yeah.
If the presenter's wearing a mask or is defensive, there's no flow of energy, and you talk at people, not sharing with them.
Yeah, I understand that. So how hard is it for people to do that, Andrew, when they've effectively lived their whole lives in their heads? How do you do that? How do you teach that to people?
I teach them, it's just to remind myself, I write that down, it's the feeling. Because once you have felt that raw and powerful, vulnerable feeling, once you've felt that, you will never go back to the old way of presenting. It's impossible. And what I do is What I do in a workshop is, just trying to word this.
So I know that wasn't on our question list, but I thought it's very important to ask.
Yeah, effectively my job is to show people how to get to this feeling. So I'll take them through. Again, this goes down to, I'll say the sentence and then I'll come back around. So effectively my job is to show people how to get to this feeling, to recognize what that feeling is like, and then for them to seek that feeling out each time they work. And I do that in an infinite number of ways, because each person's different. And I have a way of understanding what's holding someone back. And I haven't met another teacher who works like that, but I think it's because after 24 years in front of the camera and dealing with directors as well, is I understand so many of the blocks that we get when we're trying to be good, because I wasn't a good presenter to start off with. I had to fight my way all the way to the top. And the first ever job that I got on a music show, I made my co-presenter cry. I was that bad. So I tell people this because I came from that place. Because I thought that day in the studio that everything that came out of my mouth either had to be incredibly poignant and life-changing or incredibly funny. Now, that's a lot of pressure to put on a young man or a young woman,
very true.
A young person. That's a lot of pressure, and I couldn't handle that pressure, And so effectively what I do is I work with somebody. I get them to speak in a class or one-on-one. I use the camera as a tool, so I can really just watch them, and then I just play. I just kind of work with things, and I just give them advice and different ways to do things, and then I can see it. I can always see it when there's no difference between them when they're talking to me and when they're talking to the camera. I can just feel it and see it. And I just stop them. I'm like, how is that? And 99% of the time that they can feel the difference, because you're in the space. All of a sudden, there's no pressure anymore, because you don't have to be anything other than yourself.
You're allowing your innate wisdom to come out.
Yes. You know that you're not in that space if you are worried about forgetting your words. That's a nice way for you to understand that you're not in that space. If you are on stage or speaking to camera and you're worried about that that you do lose your lines, then you're not in the right place, because it's impossible for you to forget about what you're talking about. It's impossible, especially when it's something you're an authority on.
Yeah, and that's a key point as well, Andrew, and I think that's really valid, because I for one, have done video scripts after video scripts, and I've tried to read them out, and I've tried all sorts of different prompts and all sorts of things to get it, and it's the one where I ditch the script and I stand there and I share from my heart. First take, done, dusted.
Yeah, do you know the best advice? And this is all just new for me at the moment, is prepare, and then let it all go, and allow yourself to connect with your audience, and then just work moment to moment with working with your audience needs in that given moment. So if you know your information back to front, and you walk in and you do have an idea of where you're going to go and how it's going to work, but 9 times out of 10, I don't go that way. I can feel that there's something in the room, and I listen in and go, and the words will come up, and I stop and I go, nope, this isn't the right direction. Skip that part. Let's go on to this part. This is what I feel they need right now. And it's normally always right. I mean, I'm still learning myself, but I'm getting there. I'm enjoying it. Like the power of the power you feel when you're in that time and space is very, very raw and rewarding.
So the technical is not as important as the energy and tuning into your audience.
The technical is still important, but it's something that you layer on top of your I call them the primary elements. So I have the brain, which is the technical, the heart, which is the source, and the intuition, which is the your presence.
Yeah.
And it works like this. So you've got those three primary elements: brain, heart, and intuition. When they're aligned and all working together, you're basically in your zone. You're in the space that you're going to give a very good presentation. Under brain, you have things like the technical, which is your audience. So you need to still know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
You don't go into, you got to know whether they're men or women or mixed or 20s or 50s, what they do, where they're at in their career and their life, so you can speak their language.
Of course. Yeah.
And then you're looking at the other technical part, which is clarity. If you go in with numerous key messages, they won't walk away with any. So it's keeping that key message nice and clear. And then the other one is storytelling. Storytelling is an art.
Yes.
It's a bit of intuitive. There's some intuition involved. There's some heart involved. But at the end of the day, it's a story is a beginning, middle, and end. It has structure. And then I go to heart, and this is my favorite part. Is we obviously know what the highest frequency there is, which is love.
Of course. Yeah. Love and above.
Yes, and if you present in that space of love, then you're going to get enormous amounts of that back. And once you start getting that energy to flow when you're talking, it creates an amazing buzz in the room. And that's why you have to get those masks off, so you allow that flow to happen. The heart also becomes, I put vulnerability under that. And this is that ability to remove the mask, to be vulnerable. This is the one that most people struggle with. What if people think I'm a fraud? Or what if people, they're going to be judging me? And you know what's funny? I've been doing this 24 years. It's only in the last couple of months I've stopped thinking that someone's going to find me out as a fraud.
Couple of years, and you've been at it for how many? 23. Wow.
23 years.
Yeah,
No, 2 months. Only a couple of months. I've removed that.
Now that's something that we could do a whole talk on, because I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people that would know how to do that. It comes down to being able to really connect within yourself at your very essence.
Yes. Yeah. And it's very hard for people because we're so conditioned. This is why presenting in many ways, if you're using this technique, if you will, is it's actually unlearning.
It is.
It's not a learning. It's effectively it's an unlearning, which is a very unusual thing for people. You've got to allow people to see you. And, most of the time, like I haven't had a moment yet where when you're in that, holding that space for a room, people want you to win. They want you to win. No one wants you to fail.
That's right.
And if they want you to fail, then they're not your audience or your tribe they're not your client. You don't want to work with that kind of person. So they're free to judge you, and then they can just go on their merry way afterwards.
Yeah, you mentioned unlearning, and I'm not alone in suggesting that most of our lives is there to be. It's taught us, it's given us all of the things that we need along the way to show us where we're meant to be, where we're going. And if people start to view their life, their story, as if it has been happening for them as opposed to them, it makes it much easier to be accepting of where we're at.
Yes.
And you mentioned that beautifully with like getting into the heart, because I mean, you guys in particular, and right now with the rise of the divine feminine and all that sort of stuff, you guys have been told, boys don't cry. What are the other stories that you guys are told? Man up, you can't show your emotions. You've got to be tough and all this sort of stuff, which is, it's rubbish really, but it's ingrained in your belief system. So you keep playing it out.
It's funny, Michelle, people who know me realize that I get a bit of FOMO with the Divine Feminine, these workshops, and the way that this is happening, because you don't have that in men. You just don't have it. And anyone who's had a sneak peek into men's Facebook groups will realize it's not a nice place. Well, it's not the kind of place that I like to play.
Yeah.
And I have, if I can say so myself, I feel that at this stage of my life, I have that balance of masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
And the way that I teach definitely attracts more of a female audience because of the way that I teach. They're more interested and open to being vulnerable in that heart place and connecting. And when you do that, you connect with your audience.
Absolutely.
You know? And this is key, because if you're wearing that mask, you are going to attract that client or that audience when you're speaking, which is a false audience, if that makes sense. If you're being you and vulnerable, authentic, your own raw self, you're going to attract the ideal client. So this is a part that I think where people are going, I keep attracting the wrong client. And you go, well, if you get on the video and you act like somebody else, you're going to attract that client. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
It's gone are the days where, for me, where I wake up and I'm like, oh man, God, it's Wednesday. I've got to work with Susan and Michael. This is a disaster. How do I keep attracting these people into my life? But I don't anymore.
So I want to bring you back, because you mentioned the keys. We spoke extensively about the brain and the heart. The intuition, Andrew.
Nice. Good interviewing them, Michelle, you wrote that down and brought me back. Sure. Just to go over that again, to make that nice and clear. The brain for me is the technical, and it also which involves the audience, the clarity of key message and the structure of storytelling. Yep. And your heart, which is the other of the three primary elements of presenting, starts with love. If you're coming from that place of love, that's going to affect, that just creates that beautiful flow in the room. It's the highest frequency. That's the one you're going to tap into, the people you want to work with.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, source frequency you mentioned before, source.
Yes, source. Yeah. Yep, heart is source. Yeah. And then vulnerability is under heart. And then for me, voice. Now, voice in some ways is technical, but voice, when it comes from the heart, is already colored and flavored. Because I talk about like a heart monitor. And I always say to my class, if your voice is like a heart monitor, if it's flatlining and in the monotone, your audience is quite likely to be dead.
Going to sleep.
That's it. So your voice needs to be shaped. So you look for words that are opportunities to play, like stop and lush, flow. And you use those describing words to help color your language. But when you're speaking from the heart, they often come out with that color anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. And then intuition is the good part for me too. And this is perhaps the last part that people cotton on to. The intuition is the trust. It's the trust that the right word is coming up. I never rush my words. I allow them to come up from the right place. And if it doesn't sit in the right places, it comes up. If it doesn't feel right, I don't utter it. It doesn't pass my lips. And I just look for a new word. So it's that trust, and that trust to feel into your audience that you're working with. That's that moment to moment, just working. You know what you're going to talk about, but then you let it all go, and you start at the start, and you allow your audience to guide you from their needs, moment to moment to moment. And that's that connection that goes under intuition as well.
Absolutely.
So trust, intuition, and then the best part is once you have all those, under intuition is your power.
Yeah, your personal power.
Your personal power, yeah.
How many people are giving that away?
Quite a few.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andrew, can anyone present, or is it for those with more confidence, the extrovert typically?
Well, the beautiful thing about this, and I'm just about to do my fourth tour of Australia, and most people in my workshops, are people who are perhaps a little bit introverted. I get that in my intro workshops, I get the people who are introverted and shy. Yeah. And the beautiful thing about this is because it's about removing masks and because it's about just being literally who you are, it's about being vulnerable. And therefore, the people who are introverted and shy, when they show that, the audience really connects to them. You don't need to be Mr. or Mrs. Confident on stage because the confidence can often come as a charade. It can be the block. You get on stage and I do see it all the time where people get on stage and they really step into that power of leader and they get all technical and the audience is kind of going, this guy's really good on stage, but I'm not feeling anything.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling anything, then you as a presenter are not doing your job. If your job is to shift hearts and minds and to add value to those people on that day, whether it be by video or public speaking, but a shy person, an introverted person, the more that they allow the audience to see them, the more the audience will connect with them and will them on to win. They've almost got an advantage at a base level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. It makes a lot of sense. I work with energy and vibration and frequencies. That's my passion. It's been my life's work. So for you to speak about this magnificent art of communication, because it is, if people can get their story from their heart out to more, the more people are going to wake up into a better world for themselves.
I love that you just said that. I always say it's 2017. People want more. They want to connect. The days of, and this is only my opinion, of course, but the days of where you put your left arm out and to show the audience where you want them to go and the right arm out to show them where you've been, and then I walk over to the right-hand side of the stage, and this is, people can do that as long as they want, but that's not me, because I know that the people in the audience are there to connect with me. And so my job that day, no matter how I'm feeling, is literally to let them see me. And I'm just going to quickly tell you how this all came about.
I'd love to hear that, Andrew.
It was a chain of events on my last tour, and I had done I wasn't looking forward to it as much as I had my other ones, because I was finding at the end of my classes I was absolutely shattered. And I was dealing with such an array of different people, from the woo-woo and the healers to the lawyers to the, it was, and I was giving my all.
Yeah.
And the classes were getting bigger and bigger. And after I finished in Melbourne, I realized that I kind of didn't want to do it again in that way. Then I went to Sydney and I went to have an early night, and I looked, as I was in the shower, by myself, by the way, and I looked at these tiles and they weren't grouted properly. And as I put two and two together, they'd just been refurbished about 6 months earlier. And as I looked at them, I thought, do you know what? The water will go behind those tiles. When the water fills up behind the tiles, it'll have enough pressure to push them out. Literally within 1 second of me thinking that, the whole wall popped out.
My God.
And I jumped back. Otherwise I would have taken my feet off. They were really big tiles.
Sure.
And I sliced my left foot, and I took a big slice out of my right hand. And I ended up on the floor with dust settling, tiles everywhere, water everywhere, and honestly, it was like a murder scene. And cut a long story short, I ended up in hospital all that night, and went straight from there to the Sydney workshop. And I did a really good job that day, but I was wrapped up in bandages, and I had adrenaline running through me. And that night I didn't sleep because I was in too much pain. So I had 2 nights no sleep, and it was quite a traumatic experience, to be fair. I then flew to Brisbane, hired a car, drove up the Sunshine Coast, did a talk in Sunshine Coast, then drove back down to Brisbane the next day and did a talk in Brisbane, then flew out the next morning to Bali to teach that week, and then I flew to Perth. And see, what happened over this time was I had completely worn myself down.
Defenses completely down.
Defenses were complete. This was it. There was no act anymore.
Yeah. You were raw.
Yes. So what happened when I spoke at Sunshine Coast is that Danny, my partner, was driving, and I was literally for the first time going, I can't do this. I actually don't. I can't put on it. I can't brave this out. I can't. There's no mask that I can wear tonight. I don't have it. I'm too vulnerable. I can't pretend to be happy and sparkly, and so I went on, and it was actually Danny who reminded me that this is how you talk. This is what you teach people, to remove the mask. So just get up and do it. Do what, take a dose of your own medicine. So I got up and I had this big presentation prepared, and I just said, I'm not going to do this presentation. This is what's happened, and this is how I'm feeling. I actually don't want to be here, but I know if I start, the feeling will come. Just give me a couple of minutes, and let's see where it goes. And by about the minute 10, 15, all this stuff was coming out of me that was just on point and perfect at the time. And it made me realize that I actually didn't need to shift anything ever again when I went up to speak. I walk in with how I'm feeling, and I stand and feel everybody's energy. I let it flow, and then I begin. And wherever I go after that, because I know all the information that I need.
Yes.
And I'm lucky enough that I always know that stuff's going to come up that I've never said before, but it's going to come from a place that I'll never be able to tell you where it comes from, but I just trust it. That's the intuition.
Yes.
And that was that. Yeah, by the end of flying back from Perth, that's when it all just, I was broken, and I was sitting on the plane, and I just realized there was this beautiful realization that all that technical stuff can now just dissipate. It can leave. And from now on, my job was to drop people, in one sentence, was to drop them from their heads to their hearts. And they'd never have to perform again.
That's beautiful. That's very special. You've done the work, Andrew. You've done the work. And it's time to, as you say, drop in and draw on that inner wisdom, the part of us that knows where we came from, where we're going, that feels right. And it's pretty special. I love this. I love your message. It's 2017 teaching style.
Yeah.
For speaking. It's perfect. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's time, and I know I feel like this. You know, I'm going to say it anyway because I'm allowed. There was a feeling always when I was I'm in my 40s now, but there was a feeling from 18 onwards, and in my 20s, and I kept on having that reoccurring feeling of not just one. I wanted my audience to have more. But I knew that there was a part of me that wanted to leave my stamp on presenting as a whole. And as I said, I didn't come from a place of being a great presenter to start off with. I wasn't that gifted. I grafted.
You sucked.
I grafted, and I stumbled, and I fell, and I got there. But I'm now 43. It's taken me 25 years from that first idea of I wanted to change or be at the vanguard of presenting. It's taken me 25 years, and a flight from Perth to Bali, and an accident in a shower for all that to finally click.
There are no accidents.
No. I'm lucky it was just a couple of scratches.
Oh, we're very lucky it was just a couple of scratches, because I get a feeling that there are many, many, many hundreds and maybe thousands of people that you're going to bring onto this speaking arena. And I can't wait to hear their heart stories, because that's what people need.
Do you know what, if I could just say this too, is it allows us to focus. A lot of presenters feel that they have to show their worth on stage by how much pain they've been through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a big push about, you know, pain points, and I prefer to hit passion points rather than pain points, to be perfectly honest.
So do I. So it's another thing that this was the thing that people were coming into my workshops and really dropping their pain. And it was I was feeling like I was becoming that sounding board, that almost like a psychiatrist was getting dumped on, you know, but by 20 people at a time. And I realized that people don't come to see you to hear your sad story, because most of us have had challenging times. You can sum up your past in one sentence. I've had a really challenging life in parts, just like everybody else has. That's it. And this is what I learned.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
This is what I learned. And the point of going to someone's workshop is that I don't need to tell you my story of all my physical and mental challenges of my past, but what I'm there to tell you is what I've learned. And that's the value. This is what I learned. This is how I put these into tools now to pass on to you. And these are little things that I know that I can pass on that are going to help shape your life, or things you can try and implement. But how my dog died, and how you know, the depression or whatever that I've been through, that people are using that as storytelling so they relate. It's like, you can relate to me, but you don't need to use that.
So what that does is drop the other people into that negative energy space, and it's a whole lot harder to bring them back up out of that.
Yes. Are you the victim or the leader?
Victim or victorious?
Yes. Yeah. I always say that in my workshops. It's like I want, if someone gets up and talks about their tormented past, which is fine. Everyone is different, of course, too. But I always leave going, but I haven't learned anything. I've learned that you've had a really challenging past, but you didn't pass anything of value to me. And it's the stuff of value that I'd pay for too.
Yeah, and it allows the ego to come out to play, because then people start to put themselves up against how much pain that they have experienced as opposed to the presenter. So it's it's just a no-go zone, isn't it?
For me, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Now, Andrew, I would love for you to share how people can connect with you when you're coming back to Melbourne. What sort of offers do you have? Where are you at? Share with our people.
Where am I? That's a good question. Where am I at? You know what? There's always a sense of panic that comes in at the end of the year. Do you know what I mean? I don't know about you.
True. I
start to go, holy cow, there's only 3 months left. What can I do in this 3 months? And how does that work? Because I know January disappears and people can't be bothered. And in February, they're slowly getting their heads back into work. Mm. But I do go on a tour of, I have Adelaide on the 19th, which is the workshop, The Heart of Presenting. It's basically dropping you from your head to your heart.
19th of?
October.
Okay.
And then I do Sydney Tuesday, 24th of October in the afternoon. Brisbane will be highly likely the week after. And then these are the introductory workshops.
Yep.
So it's come and get a feel for it if I work for you and if we get along. To be really honest and very modest as well, they're a lot of fun. It's like a half day of absolute having a ball.
Perfect.
There's a lot of energy. I love entertaining, and I get people up as examples, and people get to work, and
that's how people learn best, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Engaged and in that high vibrational energy.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I have then in November I will do another tour as well to finish the year up. And so I guess the way to find those is on andreweggleton.com.
Yeah, and I will put all those dates and that into our show notes for people. Our content will be evergreen, so that may not necessarily be timing perfect for you right now, but it's all well and good, and you'll always get it when you need it. Trust us.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so just to sum up, we spoke beautifully about the three primary elements of personal power, really, the brain, the heart, and the intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew spoke beautifully about the need to bring your story from your head into your heart. And that's the way that you will attract to your ideal audience. And you'll also serve them best, because they will be feeding you with what they need to hear from you. And that will waken up your intuition and bring out your wisdom. So it's a beautiful, beautiful method, Andrew. I'm really happy. I'm sorry to say this, the tile fell on your foot. And all these things happen to bring out the very best in us. And it's just one thing I'd love to, I guess, remind people. And that we started with a very powerful intention for this interview. An intention to help people drop into their hearts, to bring them a message. And it's so important what we intend to happen. If you go along to any of Andrew's events with the intention to learn to be an outstanding professional speaker, you will.
Yes, that's true. Yep.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you to all of our listeners. For those of us that have met us, great to be talking to you again. We'd love to remind you that you don't have to do this journey alone. The journey of a lifetime does begin with a single step. And if you're ready to take your life and your business to the next level in a presenting field, Andrew has got the tools that you need. We do need accountability, I think, when it's time for us to step up in life. And we can be our own worst enemies when we don't take that step and reach that hand out and ask for support. So jump on Andrew's site, andreweggleton.com. I know that there is an opt-in there as well, as you offer chats, Andrew, to find out if it's good to work together.
Yeah, of course I do. Yep.
Yeah. So you can find Andrew inside my community at Entrepreneurs Globally Unite, and you can reach out to both Andrew or myself, Michelle Reinhardt, at mindsetenergyandhealing.com. I don't say this lightly when I invite that invitation and extend it out to you, because we are all here to help each other shine as bright as we possibly can. And, you know, if we can help you, then you can then turn around and help thousands more. So that being said, Andrew, once again, thank you very much for joining us on the Entrepreneurs Globally Unite podcast.
Thank you, Michelle. Pleasure.
You're very welcome, and it has been a pleasure. So until next week, superstars, shine bright, because that's why you're here. And we'll catch you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.